Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. So I am Shandy Summers. I am from the Excel Center in Little Rock, Arkansas. I am so excited that all of you are here. I know that it's been quite a day. We have had a lot of sessions, and I believe this is the last one, right? Breakout session 6. So you've been hanging in there, going to a lot of sessions, and I hope it's been useful and encouraging for all of you guys. I know it has been for me. One thing I wanted to say before we jump in, before I share my screen, is as I was thinking about the topic for the conference, one thing that just kept coming to mind, especially when I consider what's next for students, is student engagement, student instruction. Definitely this past year has changed the way that we look at education, the way that we do education. I know all of you that have experienced it too, you're just going, yes, it has. We've had to figure things out, right? We've had to adapt and change and learn how to teach differently, how to present materials differently. And one of the things that has been so useful to me as an instructor during this time is Google tools. So Google applications, Google extensions. And if you're a Google fan, you know that Google has so much to offer that can help in the way of instruction and engagement. So some of the stuff that I'm going to share with you guys today may be familiar to you, and some of it may be brand new stuff. No matter what, I hope that ultimately it comes away, that you come away from this feeling encouraged and having some really practical things that you can take with you into your classroom if you're an instructor as well. And if you're not an instructor, that hopefully some of these tools are still things that you can utilize no matter what that looks like for you. So my hope ultimately is that you can come away with something really practical and good to use in your own classroom. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys and get my PowerPoint pulled up for y'all. Okay, awesome. So the title of my session is Using Google Tools to Maximize Student Learning. And this is, like I said, breakout session number 6. So one way that I like to start all of my classes is I like to have this kind of virtual classroom space that I have created. I'll talk a little bit about some tools that I use to create this, but it's just a way for my virtual students that I just kind of virtually say hi, hello, and welcome to my classroom. So welcome to breakout session 6 and to my virtual classroom. One way that I like to start all of my classes as well, whether it's in person or virtually, is through something I call a Kickstarter. Some of you may call it a do now. Some of you may call it bell ringer, bell work, but it's basically, I call it a Kickstarter because to me, it's a great way to kickstart the class, kickstart our brains, really get us thinking and engaged. And so I just wanted to ask all of you really simply and really quickly, what Google tools do you already utilize or are you already familiar with? Go ahead and just answer that in the chat. I just want to see really quickly, what's some stuff that you're already familiar with, that you feel like you have a pretty good grasp of, and maybe what we can do today for you guys is see if we can kind of extend some of those things that you're already familiar with, right? Maybe offer some other options that you can use these tools for. So I see a lot of you saying Google Classroom, Google Drawings and Slides, Classroom a lot, Google Voice, yes, awesome. Google Forms and Jamboard, Google Sheets. Yeah, that's great. A lot of Google Classroom. We use that too here in Little Rock and we love it. Such a great tool. Okay, great. I'm seeing some things that we are going to talk about today. And so hopefully you being familiar with some of these tools will actually end up being a really good thing because that means that you already have some of this that you're using in your class, and now maybe it's just, here are some other things that we can do together using these tools that would be awesome in instruction and in engagement. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back into this then. So we're going to explore the following tools. I'm going to split it into 2 different things. We've got Google applications, and I know I've only got about 50-ish minutes or so, so I'm going to try to use your time as best as I can. But we have Google applications and Google extensions. So I'm going to look at 4 different applications pretty in depth and show you some ways that I've used these applications in my classroom. So all of this is stuff that I've tried to use and do and implement. So I'm going to be showing you a lot of examples. So we're going to be bouncing out of this slideshow presentation pretty often as I show you guys some examples and ways to do these things. So with Google applications, we're going to be looking at Google Slides, Google Jamboard, VoiceNote 2, and Google Keep. And then for our Google extensions, we're going to be looking at something called Insert Learning, Mote, Bitmoji, and Emoji Keyboard. Now, all of these things, if you are, kind of taking notes, if you're like me, I love to take notes over these things. These names will show up again. So if I move on and you're like, wait, I didn't get the last thing, you will see the titles of these again on their own separate slide. So let's go ahead and look at how these tools can help. 1, engagement. 2, management. And 3, assessment. I am a humanities instructor. I like that all of these end with the same, they all have the same suffix at the end. So that just makes my brain happy. But it's a good thing to remember, I think, engagement, management, and assessment. Now, here's the thing. A lot of these things, a lot of these tools can do and should be useful in more than one of those areas. Okay, so depending on how you decide to use the tool, it could be used to engage students in a particular activity, right? Discussion, maybe it's used not only to engage, but also to assess a particular skill. That's definitely possible. And then management, like how well and how smoothly the class is running. All of these tools, I think, can do and should work to meet all of these needs in various ways. So let's go ahead and dive into this using Google applications. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is Google Slides. I love Google Slides, and I have stretched it for all that it's worth over the past year in virtual learning. And the first way that I've done that is through station activities. So station activities, for those of you that already know, in a space where you don't have to social distance and don't have to wear masks and all of that, station activities is where you move around the room and complete a task at particular stations, right? But now that we're in a space where you have to social distance, it's better really if you stay in the same spot if you are in the classroom and you wear a mask, but also if you are virtual, then you're not going to have stations set up in their house, right? So how do you use station activities still in this virtual space and in a space where you have to social distance, right? And follow those COVID-19 guidelines for safety. So first, let me just say, Google Slides is fantastic for this. I'm about to show you how. But learning stations and gallery walks, which I'm about to talk about in just a second, they are so helpful for a few reasons. 1, they can help assess multiple skills, which is great. So at one station, you can assess one particular skill or knowledge set, and then they move on to the next station, and then there's a different skill maybe that you're wanting them to practice. But what's cool about moving it from station to station is that you are chunking information. You're breaking it up into more manageable pieces for the student instead of just throwing it all at them at once, saying, okay, here's everything that we're going to try to test your skills, and knowledge of today. Instead, these stations can really break up these concepts, chunking the concepts. It also encourages student responsibility for learning and frees you up as an instructor to be able to work with students one-on-one or in small group settings, which is awesome. And it does increase engagement pretty significantly as they do take responsibility for their learning and can work at their own pace a lot of the time. It can provide moments for collaboration, which is fantastic, and can offer differentiated instruction as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and show you a sample that I have created. It's a learning stations template out of Google Slides. And here's how you make it stations. All that you have to do is when you create your slideshow, you have to have on your first slide these little boxes. They could be circles, it doesn't matter. I did these little banners. You create these little boxes or banners. We'll call them interactive buttons for our case. And you link to these interactive buttons different slides in the presentation. Do you see how I'm hovering over this one? I've clicked on it and it says station 1 leads me to the next slide. This one, if I click on station 2, it will take me to slide 3. And I'll show you what that looks like in present mode. So if I present, which is what the student most likely will be doing at first, and say that I have already completed stations 1, 2, and 3, and now it's my turn to go to station 4, I can click station 4, and it will take me to, and you may have to move your, little zoom camera around, I definitely do, but it will take you to station 4. And whatever task is written on station 4, that's what you will do. As soon as you complete station 4, you can go to the next station or you can go to the main menu. Click to return to main menu will lead you back to slide 1. So let me show you how to do this in a practical way. Say that I wanted to just create a new slide. I'm going to hit that plus button right and create a new slide. You don't even have to make this all pretty and color-coded to match the same way. All that you have to know to do is add a shape, whatever shape that you want. And of course you can add colors and choose your font, but I just will choose a regular shape. It doesn't even matter. If you double click on this shape, it will turn it into a text box for you. And I'm just going to, in all caps, write station 1 right here, just because I like things to be pleasing to the eye. I'm going to make it a pretty color, because why not? Make this big enough so everybody can see it. Now I've got a box. Here's what's fantastic about this. Now I can use this to link to other slides in the presentation. So you can do this in a couple of ways. Perhaps one of the easiest ways is to make sure that you've clicked it and it's highlighted. You know it's highlighted because there's blue all around it, right? And you can click on this insert link button. And notice the first thing that pops up for you is slides in this presentation. If you click slides in this presentation, it will give you slide options to choose from, right? So say station 1 is at slide 3, right? Because maybe they had to go through some other steps or instruction or whatever. Then you would just click slide 3, hit apply, and then now this has become a button to transport your students to the slide or the station that you want them to be at. It really is about as simple as that. So all that I did there was I chose a shape that I wanted. I added the shape. I double clicked on it to make it a text box. I wrote what station that it was. I highlighted it. I hit the insert link and it brings up the slides. It says slides in this presentation. Click on that and I choose the slide that I want, right? And that is how you make station activities with Google Slides. And now I'm definitely one of those people that I want to add little art and colors. I want it to have a color theme or whatever. You do not have to do that. If you know how to do those couple of steps I just told you, then you can create a station activity out of pretty much anything that you're working with, right? And remember, station activities, they can be used for so many things. Think of how you could use station activities in your class. I just did expository writing this week in the beginning of term 5. We do have students back in the building, and we covered 4 different types of expository writing. To break that into chunks for students, station 1 is one type of expository writing, and that's all they have to focus on at that station, right? Station 2 is a different type, and that's all they have to focus on at that station, and so on. Breaking it down for them, giving them a chance to own the learning that they've been doing. And yeah, it's fun, collaborative and engaging as well. So something that is very similar to that is gallery walks. Gallery walks I often use with primary sources with students because I'm a humanities instructor. I do also teach world history along with English curriculum. And so for example, this gallery walk that I'm about to show you will be adapted for me to teach the Industrial Revolution, for example. And I will include images, primary source images of the Industrial Revolution. And they will, at each exhibit, view that primary source document and have to answer particular questions about that primary source image that I've given them from the Industrial Revolution, right? So it's document analysis, particularly with pictures. It doesn't have to be pictures. I've seen people do gallery walks in a variety of ways. I often just use it because it's a gallery. I often use it as images, primary source images in particular, but it works just like station activities. So if I present to you guys, click on the interactive buttons and say I want to go to Exhibit 5. I just click on that and it takes me to Exhibit 5. The image obviously would be right here along with the questions that they need to answer in regards to that image. Then I have over here too that I can return to the main menu or go to the next exhibit, right? So this works exactly the same way as the last one. If you know to include a shape, double tap on that shape to make it a text box, write whatever exhibit you want, and hit the link button, then it will let you link to slides in the presentation. Again, I like to make it all fancy and color-coded and all of that. But again, it actually is way simpler than that. I just like to go overboard sometimes. So if you can do those few steps, then you can also create a virtual gallery walk for your students to increase their learning, right? All right, let's get back into this. And if you have questions in the chat, we'll definitely try to get to those as well. I do want to see what you guys are thinking and how you're responding with some of this information. One of my favorite ways actually to use Google Slides is for assessments. So something I started doing last term pretty frequently with students is I would on Google Classroom link a slideshow that I would be using to teach them instruction material. But as they went through the slideshow and the instruction with me, they had their own copy of my slideshow. And they would include answers and do practice while I went through the slideshow. And you know, if you use Google Classroom, that all that you really have to do is create an assignment. When you attach something to the assignment, say I go to my Google Drive and I choose one of the various slideshows that I have been working on up to this point. I'll click on the one I just showed you guys and click Insert. Where it says students can view file, you make a copy for each student, and then every student will have the slideshow that you're about to use in class to teach them. So that as you go through the slideshow, so this week I used this one in, for example, where I'm teaching main idea and topic and how to identify those things. When you get to a particular point, there is practice where they get a chance to try out the skill for the first time. So usually what we did, for example, this week was the students had their devices with them and they pulled up the copy that I gave them of this slideshow. And if they didn't have devices, then I provided that for them with the Chromebooks that we have here. And they had it pulled up as well. And so as I went through the slideshow on my projector, they had the same PowerPoint pulled up that they were going through. And sometimes we would just pause and say, okay, now let's practice this skill right now. Type your answer to the question here. And so they can edit the slideshow as they go. What's cool about this is a kind of a fun way for them to be on the same page as me the whole time. But as they learn a skill, they instantly practice the skill. They learn the skill, they instantly practice the skill. And it's pretty easy to create this. It's just a typical slideshow, right? That sometimes I just split the layout, like in this one in particular, I go apply layout and I do the one with 2 columns. And on one side, they will have to read the questions or the paragraph or whatever, watch a video maybe. And then on the other side is where they will write their answers for me. It's also cool because this is, it's like they're creating a study tool for themselves. So by the end of the slideshow, and I give them feedback after they turn it into me, this is something that they can keep that not only has all the instruction material that we've gone through, like what a main idea is, how to find a topic and how to find a main idea, but they've also got all of their answers here for how they've practiced it and my feedback on what they did well or what they may need to work on and go back and do. So it works fantastically as as an assessment tool, as an engagement tool, but also as a study tool for them if they need it. So they kind of create their own study tool as they go, which is pretty fantastic. I just have one more example I want to show you guys of how I do this as well.
So before you go on, ma'am, before you go
yes,
on,
go ahead.
How do you access the answer to all that? Does it come back to you?
Yes, it does. So that's a great question. So when I go to Google Classroom to, let's see, I'll show you this. When I go to Google Classroom and I create my assignment, I attach the slideshow that I want them to have, and I click make a copy for each student.
Right.
And let me show you what it looks like from the student viewpoint. I joined my own Google Classrooms from my personal email, so I can see what it looks like from student view.
So you can, my question is very similar to his. So can you see this in real time?
So yes and no. It's not like Nearpod or Pear Deck maybe where you can see them instantly as they answer. But usually what I do when I'm having them do this activity, say that they have to practice something we just did, that's my time to walk around to each student and to see how they're doing. Or for example, if it was like a Zoom class, then that's a moment for kind of a pair and share, I guess, where it's like, what did you answer? Okay, this is what I answered, and now let's share with the class and let's see if we're all on the same page or see if we need to change our answers. So I kind of, because we've been in person like this week, I walked around to each student and checked in with them. Hey, how you doing? What are you answering? And giving them feedback in real time. But it is not like Nearpod or Pear Deck in the sense that it kind of just appears as they go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that was my question. By the way, I love your Bitmoji background and I need to figure out how to do that. That's
Thanks
nice.
so much. Thanks so much. Yeah, I will definitely talk a little bit about that if you want me to. I'm going to talk about Bitmoji in just a little bit, actually.
Oh my gosh, yeah, very cute. Very well done.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that. I was just going to say that in answer to the question that was just asked, this is what the students see. So this is the assignment that they got, and it says view assignment. Because I made a copy for every student, if they view the assignment under their work, it says your work on the right side of the screen, and it will have the student's name. It has my name right now because I'm a student in my class. And they can click right here, and that is what they will edit as they go with me. And then once they're done, they just hit that turn in button, and then I get it and can assess it and view it and see it and grade it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Awesome. This was another example of how I did that or used that in teaching the Middle Ages. Sometimes what I like to do is, this is a video of me just introducing the material. We're definitely not going to watch that. But you can create all kinds of activities. This one's just kind of a real quick drag activity, like drag and drop. So again, this is a slideshow that I make them a copy so they own it and they can manipulate it. And so they can drag these to the right spaces for the feudalism chart and feudalism practice. And I, of course, mix it up and have it all over the place. So that way it doesn't start instantly where they know where to put things. And then we watch a video about living during the Middle Ages. And we also click this article right here that I link for them about life during the Middle Ages. And then they answer a couple of questions based off of the viewing and the reading. Similar here, they read something about the chivalric code, and then we answer some questions together over to the side. And so what I love about this is you can embed videos. Just insert video. And if you already have a YouTube video that you want to use, you just put the link to it right there. It will pop up and you just hit insert, and that's awesome. Or if you have a video that you recorded, you can insert it that way as well. So sometimes they go through and they watch videos and then answer questions based off of the videos. We also did some document analysis in this, and they can click on these little links right here and listen to me talk to them. And I'll show you how to record those in just a second. So I love that Google Slides offers multiple ways to engage students, but also to assess them in various skills, right? Practicing those skills immediately and instantly. And then I get a chance to give feedback quickly as well, which I love. We're going to go ahead so that way we make good use of our time and talk a little bit about Google Jamboard. Some of you are already familiar with Google Jamboard, and I love that. Google Jamboard has so many different capabilities. One that I love to use often is just a quick check-in. How are you doing? What's your favorite part of the class? What did you feel like you learned, right? So this one that I used this back in February during that term, and I only had a few in-person students, but it was just a quick check-in. What was your favorite part of the class and why? Just so that I can have some rapport building with them, so that they can kind of discuss with each other based off of what each of the students was answering. It's really just a great place to have a kind of discussion space. And I'll show you that as a discussion board as well. I'm gonna go ahead and pull all of these up so y'all can see this. Awesome. I'm going to click on the discussion board because it's very similar to the check-in. This one was kind of an interesting activity. It's 4 corners, place the Post-it where you stand. And I wrote a statement that I wanted them to respond to because we were about to read the poem, The Hill We Climb, that Amanda Gorman did at the inauguration. And it's about unity and unity in the United States. And so because we were about to dive into that poem, I kind of wanted to hear their thoughts about unity and unity in the United States. And if they feel like we are, a united country, and just, try to generate some good, meaningful conversation and discussion with the students. And so this 4 corners activity really helped with that. And how to create these templates and all of that, I am going to show you right now, actually. So this is also a great place, not only for just quick check-ins, but also just like, hey, let's have a discussion really quickly, and let's try to generate some good discussion over a great topic. Of course, Google Jamboard is great because you can add images and sticky notes. The whole thing on the left side, the whole toolbar, offers really great resources, both for you and for the students as far as engagement is concerned. I also use these Google Jamboards for assessments. I told you that this week we used and we talked about expository writing. And I wanted the students to do some expository writing, but I wanted them to have a chance to brainstorm before doing that. And one of the ways that I thought would be kind of cool and fun to do is use Google Jamboards as a place for brainstorming. So what I did was I created these Google Jamboards, of which there are 4 slides. You see these frames at the top here. You can see all of the frames that I have for them. And so after they look at these 4 frames, we start obviously at number 1. We started talking about cause and effect writing, and they get a chance to think about cause and effect relationships themselves and do some brainstorming. And they can do that by adding sticky notes. One student was just trying to think cause and effect, just kind of a silly example that's kind of funny, that is real life for her right now, this dog barking constantly at night. So she just put a picture of a barking dog, I guess, in the middle of the screen. And that's the cause, and then all of the effects that came from that. But that is, cause and effect relationship, which I love. And so they got to have some fun with it and choose their own topics and use this as a place for brainstorming. Now, what's cool is that I have a set background right now, meaning that the students cannot manipulate these boxes or move them or change them. If you know anything about Jamboard, then you know, and I have an example here so you can see what I mean. If you add shapes to Jamboard, if you add pictures, anything like that, then you know that these things can be moved around. If I'm going to add a shape here, and so that means the student could kind of change things, right? And if you want it to be in a specific format for them, it's helpful to have a set background so that they cannot manipulate these boxes and it stays in the format that you want them to have or to follow, right? So one of the ways that I did this, or I guess made this a possibility, is I first made it into a Google Slide presentation. One, because I could also use this in Google Slides as well, which is a great choice. So I gave myself a couple of options. Either I could use Jamboard or Google Slides to generate this activity. But if you do use Google Slides, which you can add shapes to that as well, and images and all of that, if you want to have a set background for a Jamboard, you can create a Google Slide like this, And all I did here was I added 2 circles, and then I typed compare and contrast and just made them overlap, right? And then I went to File, Download, JPEG. And it says it will make the current slide an image, a JPEG image. So as soon as I hit that, and you will see it happen down at the bottom of my screen, it downloads it into a JPEG image. And now when I go to a Google Jamboard and I go to set background, I chose this option for the image. I'll create a new one so you can see what it looks like. Set background, I want to add an image, and I want to do it by uploading. I'm going to upload what I just downloaded, Expository Writing Practice. It's down here at the bottom so I can see that's the correct title. I can hit open. And now there is a set background image that they cannot manipulate and change, so that way it stays in the format that you want it to stay in. Similar to the Google slide presentation, I attached this to Google Classroom. So if I go back to Google Classroom, I can add from my Google Drive the thing that I most recently was editing, which is a Jamboard. So I'm going to click on my Jamboard. You can see the little icon and insert it. And I can also make a copy for each student so that they now can have access to this Jamboard. They can't manipulate the background, so it stays in the format I want for brainstorming. But they do have a copy now so that they can add sticky notes and pictures and all of that, and without having their peers also adding onto the Jamboard. Because Jamboard can work in both of those ways, right? Jamboard can at once be a place for check-ins and discussion where everyone can add to the same board, which is great, but it can also be individualized and for the individual student as an assessment. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts, concerns about that, or clarification?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask again, do you give these students some kind of boot camp training on how to use things like Jamboard, or do you just assume they know it? They know what to do. For example, how to add the to put the different kind of stuff in the image you make for them. Do they know this already, or you instruct them on how to do it?
Good question. So I do instruct them on how to do it. And usually how I do that is I do Kickstarters or attendance checks when they first come into the class. And so one day this week, for example, before we used the Google Jamboard for an assessment, one of their Kickstarters or attendance checks had a Google Jamboard. So the first thing we did when they came in was I said, let's go ahead and pull up your Kickstarter attendance check for today. And you'll notice it's a Google Jamboard. And I asked, have you used Google Jamboard before? Some of them had, some of them hadn't. So I go ahead and I pull it up and I display it on the screen for them. And I show them the question I'm asking for the day. That's their Kickstarter on the Jamboard. And then I go over the tools on the left-hand side and show them the sticky notes that they can add, the text boxes that they can add to answer my question.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
So that way they have something to work off of from earlier in the week. So when I do use it as an assessment tool, then it's something that they've already done.
All right. Perfect.
Right. I did want to mention a couple of other, and these won't take nearly as long. VoiceNote 2 is a great Google application that is basically just a speech to text app that you speak and it can transcribe your words for you. For students who maybe have trouble getting their thoughts on paper, or they struggle with writing and it helps them to verbalize what they're thinking first, or even for you, if maybe you have as an instructor things that you want to try to just, get out the thoughts you're thinking and have them saved, VoiceNote 2 is an amazing application that you can use that is speech to text app. I'll show you kind of what it looks like. this would be a good time just to briefly mention to you guys. So this is kind of what it looks like. It's just like a blank notebook paper, basically. And this is a good time to just mention that Google Apps and Google Extensions do have different functions, right? So think of applications as almost like their own website, kind of. Like think of apps on your phone, right? Your texting app is specifically for, your messaging app is specifically for messaging. Facebook is specifically for Facebook. It's like their own website. So applications are like their own website, basically. Extensions, on the other hand, which I'm about to talk about, can be used, these are what extensions look like, can be used across websites. So they're not tied to a specific website necessarily. They can be used for multiple websites, which is really awesome and really cool. So just to kind of clarify, but if we're looking at what VoiceNote does, it is an app. So it is like its own website, kind of. And you can, if you notice on the right side, there are multiple tools that you can use. But to begin typing, I guess, all you have to do is use the microphone that is on the right, and you just hit the microphone. It may say, you know, can we use your microphone and all of that? And then you begin talking and it will start to transcribe for you. Let me see if it'll do it while I'm on Zoom. It should. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to show you how VoiceNote works. All right, can everybody see that? Did it pop up?
Mhm.
Awesome. So I just hit the microphone again to make it stop doing, you know, the voice recording. But for students that you feel like it would be a really helpful tool or something for them to do to kind of verbalize what they're learning, right? If they are having trouble brainstorming or writing and they are definitely an external processor, this is a fantastic tool to kind of get those thoughts on paper just by talking them out. And then you can go back and polish them. So you have all of these tools over on the right side to add a period or add a comma or a question mark. And you can just put your blinker right here, wherever you want, and add what you need to as you go. So you can do some editing as you write, as you transcribe, I guess, as you have it transcribed for you. And then once you're done, you can go down to these buttons down here and you can save in a couple of different ways. You can hit this button down here, which saves it as a note. And you can title it what kind of note that you want it to be. I'm just going to title it hi. Those notes appear under My Notes in this application itself, which is awesome. So you can kind of keep up with all the notes that you have transcribed here. Or you can click on this right here and save it as a file. And if you save it as a file, it downloads to your computer that you can open and see on a notepad with the time that it was downloaded. So this is just a really great resource. I particularly think of students, you know, with specific accommodations that this might be helpful for, especially if they are learning about writing and editing. I think it offers some really awesome options for them in the writing and editing process, even in the public speaking process, if you do oral communications and working on those kinds of skills. Google Keep is another really awesome application that is also an extension. I'll show you what it looks like. I just started using Google Keep, and basically Google Keep is what it sounds like when you hear the word keep. It keeps all of the tools and websites and resources that you want it to keep, right? So I have, for example, a website that I didn't want to forget. So I included it on a note right here, and I just pasted the website link and titled it Resource History Lessons because I wanted to remember it. Of course, all of this saves to my Google Drive because it is Google, which is amazing. If there are images, this is a blank storytelling arc. That's just an image that I found that I wanted to remember and have and hold on to. So I also had it saved to my Google Keep by clicking this image button, new note with image. These two down here are also images. You can do to-do lists as well. There are multiple capabilities. show checkboxes to make it a to-do list for yourself. I have multiple labels here to the side, so educational websites, instructional resources, to-do lists, and these are all labels that I have created for myself by clicking Add Label, so I can keep up with them and keep them organized. When I say that this is at once an application and an extension, I'll show you what I mean. Applications, a lot of them, if they're Google, you can find under the Google Apps tab. And Google Keep has its own application that you can click on and find everything that you have saved under Google Keep right there. However, Google Keep is also an extension. So if you go to this little puzzle, you can find most of the extensions that you've downloaded. I scroll down just a little bit. It says Google Keep Chrome extension. So if I see a website that I want to hold on to, for example, let me see if I have, yeah, okay, so here's a website that I love. It's the Library of Congress's getting started with primary sources and the tools that you can use for primary sources. And if this is a website that I want to hang on to, all I would have to do is go to my little puzzle piece over here and click Google Keep Chrome extension, because I want it to save to keep. And it will bring up a little note that I can title, this is a primary sources tool. And notice it says saving down here in the right corner. I can exit out of there, but as soon as I go to my Google Keep, it appears right here. So if there are websites that you're on and you're like, man, I don't want to forget this website, which I do that a lot, so I'll just write it down. But Google Keep is fantastic for hanging onto those websites, because all you have to do is go to your little puzzle and do Google Keep Chrome extensions to hold on to that and have it saved to your Keep. And the way to get those Chrome extensions, easy enough, is to just say Google Keep extension. Google it and click on the first thing that comes up, and it will tell you to add to Chrome, and it will do it at the touch of a button. And all of your extensions and all of your apps that you want to find or add, type it in that search bar right there, whatever the name of it is. The first link is usually the one you click on, and there's always a button that will add it to Chrome for you, so it will be in this list of extensions or in the applications options for you guys. Let me go ahead and get back to this. Any questions about that? Okay, we are getting close to the end of the session, which is good because Google Chrome extensions don't take very long to talk about at all, because they aren't websites themselves. They are just ways that you can extend certain websites that you're already using. One that I love is called Insert Learning, and I'll show you what it looks like. It is also a Google Chrome extension. So it's right here in my little puzzle box. You scroll down, you will see Insert Learning right here. And Insert Learning is if you have any website that you want your students to see and that you want them to engage with, like you want to ask questions about the website, you want them to read an article, this allows you to insert questions and little videos and sticky notes. So for example, I clicked on insert a question right here. Copy the lesson, there we go. I'm gonna click insert a question, click on the part that I want them to pay attention to, like where I want my question to be inserted, I guess. And then it will give me a space to write a question for the students. It does give you STEM questions if you're having trouble thinking of questions yourself. You can change the point values if you are trying to assess them, right? So you can ask them whatever question that you want to ask them. This one was just, what does the title reveal about the article to come? Can you infer the topic of the article from the title alone? And they can type their question right here. You can make them into multiple choice as well and view all student responses. Of course, you get to choose the article or whatever website it is. And what I like to do is I highlight particular parts for them. and have a little comment that this one says it's a research source that's being used, so they can click on that and see how I'm modeling certain reading strategies, finding outside sources. This is another question I asked them about the above paragraph. You can even have little videos that you record of yourself for them to listen to really quickly about the reading that they're doing before they answer the question that you ask. And what's cool is when you want to see the student view, you can go to more options and click view as a student and see what it is that they can see. And this is what it looks like to them. And the capabilities that they have are to highlight the text and to add sticky notes to kind of track their reading as they go. So this is another sticky note that I have given them instructions, highlight some unknown words in the following paragraphs and try to define them like I was doing for them a few times to show them what it looks like. And again, this is a tool that you would have to explain, to your students. You would have to go over with them just a little bit because it is new and it's probably going to be new for you. So as you kind of play with it, right? I had to go and play with it to see how it worked, but it's really fantastic. And similar, you can go to Google, type in Insert Learning and Insert Learning extension, and you can add it to Chrome and start playing with it. So any website that comes up, you can hit that Insert Learning tab and it will bring that toolbar that you see right here on the left to any website that you want your students to see. You just hit that IL button and it will assign the text to your students who are in your Google Classroom. Oops. The last thing that I wanted to show you guys just really quickly before we wrap up is something called Mote. It is also a Google extension. And I primarily use Mote for verbal feedback because it is basically a way to record yourself giving about 1 minute and 30 seconds of either instruction or feedback. So I'll show you how I did it with a student essay. I took the student essay name out. I took their name out of the essay. But let me show you, I click on this part where I want to add a comment to their, I guess, to their introduction. So it's highlighted in yellow. And I recorded a Mote for them that is giving them feedback from me verbally about their introduction, what I loved about their introduction, maybe something that they need to add about their introduction. And really, once you add Mote to Chrome, see it's right here, you can click on Mote. And you can enable the extension and enable a voice transcription. You just highlight the part that you want to comment on, right click and hit comment, and Mote will come up right here on the side. And all you have to do is click it and start talking, and it will start recording for you, which is awesome. So basically students can not only have some written feedback from you, but they can also hear how you're responding to their writing, to what they're doing. So it's a way to give verbal feedback in a virtual space. You only have about 1 minute and 30 seconds to record. So it's not like you can talk long or extensively, but that is still an awesome tool to use for verbal feedback and instruction. And you can include it to Google Slides as well. I have a little right here, click for Mote. If you click right there, that's me talking to you guys for about 30 seconds, right? Because you can also add it to Google Slides. Looks like we're kind of wrapping up our session here. I didn't get to talk a lot about Bitmoji or the emoji keyboard. These are also Google Chrome extensions that you can add basically for personalization, fun feedback, a way to build rapport with your students. But there are also Google extensions that you can add to your little puzzle at the top. And if you want to hear more about that, I would love to talk to you about it, but I know our time is about up. So thank y'all so much though for joining me. I know we covered a lot.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank y'all so much. I know it's late. I know y'all are like, ooh, it's been a long day. So thanks for hanging in there with me and all of this content that we just covered.